Welcome, everyone. It's Angelo Robles. If you're live today, it's Wednesday at 4 o'clock Eastern. I did tease this out last night because, of course, you always watch my lives, that we were going to have a special guest with us today. And many of you know I've been very, very active in the world of AI. I actually have not, really since Alexander Wisnergross a couple of months ago, had as many guests on as I would like to. Well, that's going to change today. We have someone who I'm a huge fan of, known about him for months, heard him on Moonshots with Peter Diamandis and the before mentioned Alexander Wisnergross, and said, like, whoa, this guy I have to have on. So we're going to call it the AI Maestro, Alex Finn. What he's building and why entrepreneurs, business owners, recent college graduates, but of course for me, family offices kind of may not even know that they actually need. So he's the founder and CEO at Henry Intelligent Machines. We'll get to some of that. He also is the founder of Creator Buddy, and he's a must follow on X and YouTube. And he has a wonderful community. I highly recommend that you subscribe and interact even a little deeper. Everyone, let's welcome to the show, Alex Finn. A pleasure to have you on, Alex.
Pleasure to be here, Angelo. Very excited for the conversation.
Thank you. You're very kind. You're going to get the Angelo rapid fire. Let's get to it. So you really have lived inside the stack now for multiple years. Really, I know how hard you work. Could be 16-hour days, maybe light for you. So no one on earth has really, in my opinion, spent the raw hours actually building with even frontier models like Claude. And we're going to get a little to more of a hardware stack and open weight models, but you're renowned for the work that you've done in OpenClaw and Hermes. For someone watching now, let's even bring it into my world, the principal of a family office, kind of trying to figure out where to begin. And what does the world actually look like from where you're standing when you're looking to educate others into that the train has left the station. You have to learn how to use AI to be viable in the world moving forward. How would you recommend they begin?
Yeah, I think the issue most people have is there's so many tools, there's so many things to do. There's so much fear out there that they're falling behind that they kind of freeze up, right? They don't really know where to begin. I was beginning ChatGPT, Claude Code, OpenClaw, Hermes. The way I learned what I learned and have been able to build multiple businesses with AI is very simple. Pure experimentation, pure just playing with things, pure just getting started, right? Information or action leads to information, right? The more action you take, the more information you get. I think the issue most people have is they wait for information first, and that's not the way to do it, right? The way I recommend getting started, it doesn't matter. You just need to get started. You just need to take a tool. You just need to take a ChatGPT, an OpenClaw, Hermes, anything, and just start using it. Just start bouncing ideas off it. Just start asking it questions, seeing what it has to think, reverse prompting it. What can you do for me? Based on what you know about me, what can you do? And the more action you take, the more information that will be created, and you can take that information and do other things and branch off and try new things. You just got to do something.
Great. And I promise, audience, we're going to get to frontier models, open weight, hardware stack. Although it may only be about an hour and 5 minutes, it will be a deep dive. And if you're not a family office, don't worry. Are you someone in high school, in college? Are you someone who's an entrepreneur? Do you work in service in the financial community? I promise this is going to be incredibly valuable, and we have the right person on for that today. So you operate the way that I think many entrepreneurs and even family offices, bring it into my world, are going to be careful with my words here, but let's go with the word forced to operate inside of about 3 years. I'm early, you're early. I could see one person, an AI stack of agents, output that used to take a team of 5, 10, or 15. What is someone who's an earlier stage entrepreneur or a family office that they've never seen this firsthand? What are they misunderstanding about the possibilities that are there right now? This is under 4 years old. And I think people gravely underestimate that.
Yeah, I think, and this kind of relates back to the last question. I think a misunderstanding is people don't see use cases that are relevant to them on the internet. So that they think, oh, it's not for me, right? The way to think about it is the AI is basically your employee. It's an employee that can quite literally do anything, can research for you, create things, code, write, whatever you need. When you're hiring an employee, you don't go to other business owners and say, hey, what's your use cases for your employees? Right? That doesn't make sense. Nobody does that. What you do is you just hire them, you have something in mind you want them to do, and they start doing it. And you figure out as they do things what their strengths and weaknesses are, the value they're creating for you, and you kind of update their tasks based on that. You want to think of it like an AI employee where you bring them on, you explain your business, you explain, the things you do on a daily basis, the daily tasks you have, and then you see what they can take off your plate and what they can do. I think people misunderstand, like they see what other people are doing. They go, oh, that's not really, I don't really care about that. That's not the point. It's personalized and custom for every single person. So you just need to do it and see what it can do for you and your own personal use cases.
Let's jump into the frontier models. So everyone's going to be familiar with OpenAI. I hope everyone's familiar with Anthropic and their broad suite that we're going to get to. Grok, Gemini, Perplexity is unique, but let's throw them a little bit into the mix. My experience with people, shockingly, even too many young people, is, well, I don't know. It's a glorified search engine. I only have the free version of ChatGPT. I put in a sentence, I get a mediocre answer. How do you recommend what frontier models to use? Should you use them all? And how to learn about prompting and meta prompting to get better outputs?
They all have subtle differences. And the subtle differences and the subtle strengths and weaknesses are constantly changing, constantly, right? I liked Claude for a long time. Now I like ChatGPT better. So all you can really be doing to stay on top of them is just using them and see which ones you like talking with, which ones you like communicating with, which ones do your specific task better. For a long time, Claude was a significantly better coder than ChatGPT, significantly better. I think that shifted over the last couple of weeks. I now think ChatGPT is better at coding. So, you need to be using them and just dabbling here and there to see which are better at your specific things. Claude is still better when it comes to more design-oriented work, when it comes to more front-end work. And so I still lean on Claude for that. This usually leads this recommendation to people kind of being overwhelmed. Oh, I only have one subscription. I only have this. It doesn't matter. If you only have one subscription, if you only have ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or Grok, and you can't afford to do other things or you don't want to, that's fine. Just use them. Eventually find the time to dabble with the other ones to see what they work for you. But right now, ChatGPT 5.5 is my main driver. I think it's the best coder. I think it's the most intelligent. I think it does the best creative thinking. It comes up with the most novel ideas for me. So I've been using that for most things. I still use Claude for design-oriented work. The websites and landing pages and things it can create on that front are significantly better than ChatGPT still. But, that's why you really need to make it part of your daily routine, even if it's just 15 minutes. Dabble with each. Have a test prompt you give to each model. See which responses you like best. See which responses feel the best. And then quite often when you try new things, generating an image or whatever, you just test it across all of them and see which ones you like best. Constantly kind of have those little tiny experiments you run.
We don't have to go super deep into setting the temperature, context windows. Obviously, they're all different. The main two, 100%. The jump in ChatGPT to 5.5 compared to 5.4, oh my God, it's huge. Whereas, I think you'll agree, we're all a little disappointed in the Opus 4.7 compared to 4.6. Mythos may change everything, but I've been waiting on that for a month. Are you a little disappointed in 4.7?
I think I'm in the minority of people who liked 4.7 more than 4.6.
Wow.
I thought the outputs I got were more consistent and dependable. I liked it. I just think at the moment, the issue with Claude is they clearly, for a long period of time, had a lack of compute. OpenAI clearly has significantly more compute, invested way more in GPUs and data centers. And so they, over the last 6 months or so have gotten much more rapid improvement, right? We had kind of the Opus 4.5 moment in November last year, which I thought was the biggest leap in AI ever. Since the original ChatGPT 3.5, I thought Opus 4.5 was the biggest leap we've ever had. I thought it was incredible. I think it put Anthropic on the top of the world. But ever since then, it's only been kind of step changes, while ChatGPT has taken big leaps every step of the way. Now, as you know, Anthropic just did a deal with SpaceX. I guess they're now SpaceX AI. I like SpaceX better, to get significantly more compute. Billions of dollars they're spending a month on Elon's compute. So I do believe this will change. I do believe once they get the data centers up and running for Anthropic, we'll probably see a consumer release of Mythos and probably see Opus catch back up. But I liked 4.7. It's just 5.5 and 5.4 both jumped above it and improved much faster.
Back a little bit to getting better outputs. If you don't know how to prompt, you're probably going to be a little disappointed, and you're going to have to go a little back and forth, have the models battle, etc. Do you recommend using AI, meta prompting, to prompt better to get a better output in terms of what you want? Because you're probably initially not going to be as good.
Yeah, I think what people need to do a lot more of when using AI is ask questions. Ask questions to the AI. I think people go into it and they have their way of working and they don't really comprehend that what they're talking to is super intelligence. And so they do it their way. In a lot of ways, the AI is significantly smarter than you, right? If you were going and you were working with Elon Musk on a project, you probably wouldn't just go to him and just tell him a bunch of things to do. You probably would at different points say, hey, how would you do this? How would you do this better? What do you think about this? Right? You should be doing the same thing with AI. You should be going, hey, I was thinking of asking you to do this. Is that the right way to do it? Am I thinking about this the right way? I was thinking about asking you to do this. Would you do this better? How would you prompt yourself to do this to get better results? So in a way, it's meta prompting. Another way, it's kind of what I call reverse prompting, where instead you're asking questions. How would you do this? What are better ways to do this? And I would just shift your lens of the AI you're talking to recognize that it is probably in many, many ways much more intelligent, not an insult to the audience, everyone. It's much more intelligent than everyone in a lot of different ways. And you need to recognize that and talk to it like it's someone who's more knowledgeable and say, okay, how would you approach this? What would you do here? And I find the answers you'll get from those types of questions will lead to a lot better prompts.
I'm only chuckling when you mention the intelligence aspect, 100%. But our mutual friend may be one example, AWG, maybe someone who could say, you're not quite there yet. But AWG, they're catching up, my friend. Let's change directions a little bit, then we'll come right back. We heard on Moonshots, we heard on the All In, and you've been a guest on Kalkanis as well. There was a lot of commencement speeches in the last 2 weeks, and a lot of the college kids are booing even some of the biggest names like Eric Schmidt. Where is the disconnect, and how can we help that connection be better so they're more optimistic about the future?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of different angles to it. I think there's a lot of different reasons why the sentiment in America around AI is so largely negative. I think one reason is marketing. I think we have a tremendous marketing issue in America around AI. We have our leaders telling people that AI will eliminate jobs, that it's the doomsday device, that it's horrible, that it's, there's a 30% chance we'll all die. First of all, not true.
P-do.
Second of all, it's just being used, I think, for political leverage. If you go and you spread a bunch of fear, you'll have more opportunity to have power. But all of these things are leading to people hating AI. There's another marketing issue. A lot of CEOs have figured out over the last year that if they make mistakes and blame it on AI, they can get away with it and their stock price will go up. An example, a lot of CEOs overspent in 2021, right? Interest rates were 0%. And so they went, and I was a manager in 2021 at a tech company, and the directive was hire as many people as you can and pay them whatever they want. That was literally the directive. And that was the directive at a lot of tech companies back then. Now interest rates are much higher, and they're going to be there for a very long time because of inflation. So we've had all this spending. Now interest rates are high, and now the CEOs have to let people go because that outrageous overspending. But what they figured out is, if we just go, hey, the business is doing great, the business is doing amazing, we've never made so much money, but AI is here, so we have to make things slim, the stock price will still go up. So every CEO over the last 6 months has used the same exact playbook. Despite the fact they overhired, despite the fact they made horrible decisions, they're going to blame it on AI to kind of get out of it because they don't want to take accountability. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a normal person who's fighting for their lives, who's trying to put dinner on the table, and they read a tweet. Maybe they're not very familiar with AI, and they read a tweet going, hey, business is doing great, but AI is so good, we're firing everybody. Of course, you're going to hate AI. Of course, it's going to lead you to be going, oh, well, I hate AI. Everyone's losing jobs because of it, when it's not really the truth. The truth was these CEOs made a lot of very bad decisions. So point being, bringing the point back home, is we have many issues. The first, I think the biggest one is marketing. It's being marketed horrible in America. And then the other one, which I think fixes that problem, is most people are not getting value out of AI. And so when you're not getting value out of AI, you don't really know how to use it. And you see everyone on the internet going, oh, well, everyone's going to die because of it. You're probably going to hate the technology. And so the solution in my mind is, one, leaders being more conscious of the message they're putting out there about AI, but two, getting more people to get more value out of AI. If people understand what AI is and get value out of it, they're going to see through the doomerism. They're going to see through the feeling like, oh, actually, this is a beautiful product that unlocks opportunity for everyone. And so I think those are the two big solutions to the challenge we have here in America.
I don't want to drag you too much into the geopolitical picture. After this question, we'll move on. And I'm not the only person who mentioned this. I believe they mentioned it on the All In as well. But it is a little bit of a race between the US and China. I'm assuming China probably wants to win. And if they could psyop a younger audience that is more impressionable relative to this is bad, it's taking your job, it's bad for the environment, that's going to make China win. I don't know if it's something you really want to comment on, but to think these things don't happen, maybe both ways, like it's like just not realistic.
No, you have in China a very positive sentiment. 80% of people in China think positively about AI. When OpenClaw came out, they had literally festivals in town squares where grandmas were lining up to install OpenClaw. That is not what's happening in America. In America, if you tweet about OpenClaw, half your replies are, well, that's slop, that's garbage, that doesn't do anything, that's killing everything, that's drinking the water out of the lakes, right? And so I don't know how, if we continue on this path, we win in this space if everyone in the country hates it. So we need to figure out as a country, for the good of the country, how do we change it and turn around and educate people on why it's actually a very positive technology and not a negative one.
Of course, let's bring it back a little bit into my family office community, and you may disagree, but I think broadly as a suite, maybe not in deep reasoning or coding compared to OpenAI at the moment, but as you noted, that could change every week. But as a suite, Anthropic is pretty inclusive. Co-work, code, design that you mentioned, their new managed agents, what they're doing with their Wall Street busters, where the CEO is on stage with Jamie Dimon, etc., is a good place for a family office to start. Like, okay, we got prompting, we got good at chat, but now we got to start to do things. If you had to pick a platform and coordinate internally at that platform before we move to being more sovereign, do you think the Anthropic suite and mastering it is a good start?
I don't think of it on a suite level. You know, Yes, I would say Anthropic's ecosystem is probably more well developed at the moment. But I also believe, and what I mean by that is like OpenAI spent a while building a whole lot of tools, Sora, this and that. They took kind of the Google approach to things, which is make as many experiments as possible. 90% will fail, but the 10% will be bangers. Anthropic took more of the Apple approach, which is only release things we are very, very confident in and fully tested. And that has led to, I think, stronger products in a more focused direction. But I think that OpenAI is quicker to pivot to, I think, where the future is going, which is the super app. I don't know how much longer Claude Design, Claude Cowork remain separate apps. I think where we'll converge in the future is one mega app that does it all for each. And I think OpenAI is making a faster pivot to that with Codex. Codex now basically has all the functionality of OpenClaw, has image generation, does all the coding, and has chat functionality. So they made a quicker pivot to the mega app. End of the day, if you are early on in your AI journey and you're trying to figure out what ecosystem to commit to, I don't necessarily think you need to commit to an ecosystem. I would just say start using the tools in a small sliver, whether it's just a chat or it's just the coding. See which one you feel more comfortable with. Go into that, but also be prepared at any given time to pivot, because the tools change, the tools get stronger. So you not only, like, I think committing to one ecosystem and having like tribalism would be a mistake. I'd say have them both, be usefully familiar with both, use whatever's better for you at that moment. But as things change, as new tools release, be nimble enough to switch to whatever is best for you and your workflows.
Here's a question that I have to address from entrepreneurs, or when I speak at universities, rare, but it happens. They just don't want me to talk geopolitics. So sad. But when I do talk about family offices, money, and AI, I do get feedback from people in the family office world like, wow, Angelo, look how much things have progressed really since the beginning of the year, especially with Anthropic, and lately the last 30 days with OpenAI. The others have maybe fallen a little bit behind. Why don't I just wait a little bit longer until this gets easier? How do you help to convince them that their mindset and compounding their knowledge, when it may be a little harder now, when they may have to pivot, like compounding your money over years, your mindset and compounding your knowledge, you can't afford to wait. You got to start now. Don't you agree?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things to it. I'll pretend with this. I do believe the economy, especially the US economy, is a positive sum economy. So what I'm about to say, pretense, I don't believe this is a dog eat dog world. I don't believe if you win, someone has to lose. I do believe it's positive sum. With that being said, I also believe there's such thing as competition. And because this is challenging means less of your competition is using it, right? The general sentiment for most people is, oh yeah, it's difficult, I'm not going to use it. So that means there's more opportunity. The more difficult a thing is to use, the more opportunity there is by using it. And so my recommendation is, yes, it's difficult, and that's why you should be using it. That's why you should be learning it, because your competition is probably going, yeah, it's difficult, I'll wait till it's easy. But when it's easy, everyone will be doing it, and a lot of that opportunity will disappear. It's the reason why I think I was able to grow on YouTube so quick, my YouTube channel. Turning on a camera, talking into the camera is a very difficult thing to do for human beings. It's inherently awkward, and most people do not want to do it. And so by doing it, I was able to grow very quickly, because most people in the AI space just felt too uncomfortable doing it. And so it being difficult is not a reason not to use it. It's actually a very good reason to use it.
100%. Completely agree. Those are very good reasons. Let's transition a little bit into, we spoke about Frontier. I'll give a little bit of context to that, and then we'll switch to open weight and some of the amazing things you've done in OpenClaw and Hermes. Like, okay, the average person, I'll pick one or two. I think they should do all four. If you have the capital, there's a big difference at the highest level of OpenAI getting access to 5.5 and full codex versus free or $20 a month, where you're getting a weaker model, you're getting less usage. By the way, they're at free training on your data. Maybe the average person doesn't care, but if I'm an entrepreneur with a great idea, if I'm a family office, I really want privacy and control. We don't need to get too deep into, well, do we do AWS, Bedrock? Do we contain it? All things for a deeper discussion that could be more valuable, how you could access this. But the big picture is, I don't really own it, Alex. I'm renting it. Don't I want to own my own gold? Why would I not want to own my own hardware, my sovereign stack, and open weight models where I'm not bleeding what may be my proprietary knowledge, quote unquote, into the cloud, where I may have vendor lock-in where they could raise the price, and we didn't even get into. If I'm running these agent models internally on some of the frontier models that I'm noting, and I'm going 168 hours a week, you're going to be spending some money. Talk a little bit about the transition of frontier is great, sure, but you may have to start to learn more about the right hardware stack and open weight models and why that's also very, very important.
Yeah, I am a big believer in open source and open weight AI and models. I believe it's something everyone should be conscious of and learn and understand how it works and the advantages to it. I also don't believe it's a binary thing where you need to be all on frontier and all on local models. I tweet quite often about local models, and a lot of replies are like, oh, but local models are stupider and slower. Well, yes, in some ways they are a little bit stupider and slower, but you don't use it for everything, right? You got to understand what queries you use for frontier where you need maximal intelligence and performance, and what tasks you give to local models when you need privacy or scalability, being able to do things 24/7, 365. I very famously have bought a bunch of Mac Minis and Mac Studios. I run multiple local models at all times, 24 hours a day. They're doing things at all times. They're scraping the web. They're collecting data. They're building me software. I don't do everything with local models. Most of my coding is done with frontier models because the frontier models code better and I want the highest quality code humanly possible. But there are things I do, things I build where I want my data private. And there's also tasks I give where I want them going 24/7, 365. And those two latter things are not possible with frontier models. I can't have private conversations with frontier models. I can't give them tasks to work 24 hours a day with frontier models because that'd be way too expensive. And so you learn what the strengths are of each. You figure out which tasks are more appropriate for each, and you do those things. Now, I'm not saying everyone here needs to go and run out and buy a Mac Mini or a $10,000 Mac Studio. I think that'd be a tremendous mistake. I think if you go and you spend thousands of dollars on hardware and you don't know why and you don't know what you're going to do with it, you're making a massive mistake and you're probably wasting money. I think you should figure out what those use cases are first that are stronger for local models and hardware, and then get the appropriate hardware for that. But you need to figure out what those use cases are first. If they're use cases where you need privacy and you can't have other models training on your data, then you want to get a local model. If they're, simple tasks that need to run over and over and over again for 24 hours a day, you want local models. But you want to understand what those use cases are first before you run out and buy expensive hardware.
Reverse engineering in terms of what you need and starting off a little bit slow is probably never a bad idea. But because I am talking in the family office industry and families of great wealth that create their own entities, money may not be as much of an issue, but we also don't want to burn through something that they're not going to use, for lack of a better word, the horsepower with. Walk us through a little bit. You hinted at it. Mac Minis, which model, the most expensive one? Do I wait till the M5 version comes out? A Mac Studio, but you're also going to tell the audience, be patient, my friend, because you're probably going to have to wait weeks after weeks after weeks after weeks to get it. Do they jump into the NVIDIA DGX Spark, or is that going to be a little too intense for most people?
The challenge is that Max and Mac Studios are my original recommendation for local AI. I bought 2 Mac Studios, 512 gigabytes each, so the highest end ones you can get. I have a couple Mac Minis. Mac Minis, you're not buying for local AI. You're not running good models on them. My original recommendation was Mac Studios because they have what's called unified memory.
Yep.
Basically, they can run much larger models than NVIDIA chips. NVIDIA chips, don't get me wrong, are incredible. You're going to get way better speed and performance out of NVIDIA chips. And there are reasons to get NVIDIA chips over Mac Studios for specific use cases. But I thought for the average person where speed might not be as important, just being able to run intelligent models would be good. Here's the challenge. When I made that recommendation back in January this year, we lived in a very different world. We lived in a world where you could buy Mac Studios with 512 gigabytes of memory each. Now we live in a world where you can't. We live in a world where Micron's stock price has 5x since then because memory has become a major, major bottleneck. And so if you go to Apple's website now, you cannot buy a Mac Studio with more than, I think, like 50 gigabytes of memory or something like that on it, because there's a major memory shortage. And the Mac Studios that we're supposed to launch in the next month, I'm hearing rumors that have been delayed for a good amount of time, potentially even December, because of the memory shortage. And so now Apple's strength, which was that big unified memory, not quite much of a strength anymore because you can't buy big unified memory computers from them. So with that being said, I think the strength kind of goes back a little bit to NVIDIA's side because you can buy a DJX Spark that has 128 gigabytes of unified memory and really good performance. So if I'm starting now, I'm probably leaning towards the Spark. Now, is it as user-friendly as Apple? No, not even close. One of the big reasons I recommended the Studio and the Mac Mini is I think Apple's products are the most user-friendly products on planet Earth. I absolutely love using them. They are a joy to use. The DJX Spark is a Linux-based machine. For the average consumer, they've never used Linux in their entire life and will be very foreign and unfamiliar. Now, I don't manage it through the user interface. I don't use Linux. I actually have my OpenClaw managing the DJX Spark. I haven't plugged it into a monitor ever. So there's ways to do it. It's going to be a good amount more complicated than buying a Mac Studio. It's just a much more challenging time right now to get really good hardware than it was, say, 4 months ago when I started making the recommendation. So, I'd look to see what's in stock where you are. Well, first I would see, again, what your use cases are and what you're trying to accomplish. See what the hardware requirements are for those use cases, and then see the hardware availability where you are. Are there Mac Studios that have that amount of memory available where you are? If not, does the DJX Spark do it? Is that available near you? So those are the kind of all the variables to take into account with your decision making.
Okay, let's assume that we have the hardware. We're going to jump now into more utilization of open weight models and something that you're the master at online with OpenClaw and Hermes. We could do hours on this. We'll probably keep it 10 minutes, so audience, just stay with us. Let's assume they have the hardware stack. We don't have time to get into how they use Hugging Face or Olama, but audience, it's easy. Like I tell this, I'm a 60-year-old male. I'm not a techie. And 8 months ago, I created my own apps. If I could do it, anyone could do it. You just got to, like you said, you got to put in the time, follow some of the right people, and just start to do it, to execute and to iterate and adapt as you go along. It's the best way to learn. Walk me through what you would recommend. You're going to probably recommend, okay, great. Let's start with even OpenClaw. You're going to want to orchestrate with one of the frontier models, but be a little careful of cost. Which model? You were always big on 4.6 and 4.7, that Claude had an edge on the older OpenAI as the orchestration layer. Let's start there. Has that changed?
So previously, when for those watching, not sure what orchestrator means in this context, when you're working with AI and you have an AI agent, you typically have a model that makes all the decisions. and decides what should we do here, what tools should we use, decides the direction, what you want to do. That's your orchestrator. And then maybe you have smaller, cheaper models that do the execution, that actually take the task the orchestrator decides on and does that thing. Now, up until a month ago, there was only one player in the game, and that was Claude, Opus. It was by far the best orchestrator model. If you used any other model, including ChatGPT, as an orchestrator, it was completely useless. It would make awful decisions. It would not get tasks done. It was completely undependable. And Opus was by far the best. Fast forward to a few weeks ago, ChatGPT 5.5 comes out, which I believe is a better model than Opus. But when it comes to orchestration, Opus is still better. The good news is 5.5 is usable. It works. I thought 5.4 was completely unusable when it came to orchestration. I thought it was useless. I'd rather have not used any AI agent at all than use 5.4 as the orchestrator. The good news is 5.5 is actually useful. It works. It gets the job done. Is it as good as Opus for orchestration? No, it's still not there. But there's I would use it now, right? So if you're on a budget and you can't pay for the Anthropic API, so you can't pay a few $100s a month to pay for API credits, I think you are totally fine using ChatGPT as the orchestrator model.
Excellent. So again, let's walk that through. And again, we're taking AI from chat to doing things, which is AI agents. And again, strictly using the frontier models, internal systems may be the initial better option, but I could debate privacy and control. And again, if you let it rip 168 hours a week, maybe you got the money. It's going to be a big bill. So what you're talking about is hyper-powered programs like OpenAI and Hermes. And we'll get to that competition in a little while because you've adapted, which is great for you. Some of your thinking about that. So I may have multiple Mac minis. I'm orchestrating, controlling my hours with a frontier model like the ones we described, but I'm going to execute with the before mentioned open weight models that are on my systems that don't touch the cloud. Which models, Kimi, Quen, Llama, etc., do you prefer for execution?
Yeah, I mean, it's constantly changing, right? But one thing I've noticed consistently is I've enjoyed using Quen. I think Quen, you're getting the best bang for your buck when it comes to size to performance. You can get a small Quen model, a 27B size, which is pretty small, and still get very good performance out of it. So I'm a Quen fan. I also do like Minimax. Minimax, kind of the same thing where it's actually a bit smaller and faster, not quite there on an intelligence level, but you really get good performance, good like speeds out of it. So I like Quen. I also like Minimax. Kimi is great, but it's really built for those larger use cases. Their specialty is the very large model that you run across multiple devices. So if you are a big baller and you got 100K plus of computers, Kimi might be the way to go. But I think for a majority of people, a small Quen model that runs simple tasks quickly and often is probably the way to go.
Okay, now let's get into the crux of it. We mentioned using certain internal models at frontier models, again, in the cloud, versus I'm going to download for free OpenClaw. I got the hardware. I'm going to download the open weight models. I'm going to orchestrate yet execute with the open weight models. Why am I doing this? It's a little more complicated, maybe a lot more complicated. Although again, I promise you could learn it. Why don't I just stick to, the frontier models? Is OpenClaw at the highest levels, if you're a master user of it, simply better than the AI agent outputs I get on frontier models?
Well, there's a couple of things there. I don't think it's binary. I don't think it's, do I use OpenClaw on a local or do I use OpenClaw on a frontier? I have a multi-agent setup. I have multiple Hermes models. I have multiple OpenClaws. Some of them are powered by local models. Some are powered by frontier. And depending on the task, I go to the appropriate model, the appropriate agent. So to give an example, I'm building a company called Henry Intelligent Machine. It finds opportunities online for users custom to them, custom to their skill sets. And where a lot of that data comes from is my local Hermes model agent powered by Quen going every 20 minutes around the clock online on a Reddit, on a Twitter, and finding business opportunities. That is perfect for the local model. That is perfect for the Hermes powered by the local orchestrator. Because if I did that on Frontier, I'd be paying thousands of dollars a month for it to do things every 20 minutes. So I don't think it's binary. I think you can have local agents, local Hermes. You have multiple local Hermes models, multiple Frontier Hermes models, and then you find the appropriate agent for the appropriate task.
Excellent. That makes a lot of sense. Now, you are hardcore and really deep, putting more hours in, I think, than anyone in the community, looking back a couple of months ago in OpenClaw. You were aware, obviously, you started to use let's go with the word, a competitor, Hermes. And lately, you've been extremely like, hey, this is great. There's more competition. And there might be some things that Hermes, a competitor, might do better than OpenClaw. Could you compare and contrast the two programs?
Yeah, both are very strong products. Both, I think, are very usable. I don't think, again, there's this weird tribalism online where it's binary. It's one or the other. You have to use OpenClaw. You have to use Hermes. I think they're both great. I've been using Hermes more lately. The reason being, personally, is I've been updating OpenClaw a good amount, and every time I update it, it breaks almost every time. That's frustrating for me. So I've been.
I understand.
What's that?
I understand.
I've been leaning more on Hermes. I still use OpenClaw. I just don't update it because I just know it's going to frustrate me. So I still use OpenClaw. I just lean on Hermes a little bit more. Again, I think, it's different for every person. I know some people still swear by OpenClaw. I know some people that swear by Hermes. You want to see what's best for you in your workflows and what performs for you. I personally just leaning more towards Hermes. I like the way they update things a little bit more. I like their direction and roadmap a little bit more. So I've been using them a bit, but the way the two teams work are very different. And so I'd just be using both if I were you. There's no downside to having two agents, one of each. I've just been leaning more towards Hermes because it's been more dependable for me.
I think I'm going to know your answer, but just so it maybe sinks in with the audience, again, other frontier models were a little focused on Anthropic and OpenAI. And who knows, the next month, 2 months, like you'll admit, things could change. When it comes to coordination and orchestration, the way we're talking about it, with both coding and AI agents, why or where is there any role at all right now for Gemini 3.1 and Grok 4.3 Heavy?
There isn't. I don't use either for anything. At the end of the day, you got to be using the best model for whatever task it is you're doing. Coding, ChatGPT. Design, Claude. Now, Google Gemini has strengths in some areas. I believe their video generation, if you live in America, is the best, because I think C Dance is the best in the world, but I don't think you can use C Dance in America, or you can, but only through specific apps. So, their VO model is fantastic. So I would use it for that. Also, their AI is great in spreadsheets and Google Docs because it's built into Google Docs. So it's good for that. But from a majority of use case perspective, I'm not really using Gemini too much. Grok, if I'm making a meme to make fun of my friends, I might use Grok because Grok Imagine's like free. But other than that, there really is no advantages. Again, the space moves so fast where we could wake up, Gemini 3.5 Pro can come out, can be the best model in the world. I kind of think Google's had issues with focus. I don't think they're as focused. It seems like they just have a tremendous amount of people doing a tremendous amount of things, and there really isn't much focus on making the best product humanly possible. And so I think that's been the challenge. So, if you're using the best product for the best use cases, ChatGPT and Claude is going to have significantly more use cases and uses than the other ones.
I mean, we're not looking to make it a how-to instructional manual or video. You've done them on OpenClaw and Hermes, but it can get a little technical. When I'm thinking in the world of finance and family offices, setting it up, integrating, do you use paperclip for governance? How do you structure institutional memory, Obsidian, Weaviate? We didn't even get into the soul and heartbeat of the agents. How do people overcome the inertia of like, I don't know, this seems kind of hard. Like, how did you do it, and what would you recommend to people?
Well, don't overcomplicate it. You have all these tools, paperclip, 100 other orchestrators. There's new ones coming out every day. There's new ones being open sourced every other day. And if you get caught up, like I'll try them. Like I tried paperclip, but it just didn't work for me. It just didn't work in my workflow. It wasn't worth the extra effort of using it. And so like again, if you're just starting, no need to overcomplicate. Just use the tools. Then once you get comfortable and get in the flow, you can start experimenting and trying the paper clips of the world, all these other orchestrator agents. And then you just learn as you go, like, okay, is this worth the extra effort? Am I getting the benefit out of it that it makes it worth the complexity that comes from adding more tools to my workflow? If so, keep using it. If not, then rip it out. I'm all about simplicity. You just want to keep things simple. Try things, run experiments, see if it works for you, but ruthlessly keep things simple and take out things that are not worth the effort.
People are going to utilize AI and AI doing things from vibe coding to the agents that we're talking about, but they may need something that to them is concrete. Is this saving me time? As a family office or financial entity, could I do more with less, scary word, better and faster? Is it working 168 hours a week? And how do I get started on something basic, a workflow? And then I advance maybe into deal membos, into legal accounting, into training. How do you recommend from maybe a financial services entity or family office a first step where you could get a win under your belt?
Yeah, my two things I do with any new AI tool, anytime I'm doing anything new, anytime I'm introducing a new intelligence into my workflow, same thing everyone else should be doing when they're just getting an AI is number one, tell it all about yourself, right? So tell it your goals, ambitions, what you do on a daily basis, your tasks, all that. Get it so it understands who you are and what you do. And then two, reverse prompt. Okay, based on what you know about me, what tasks can you take off my plate? How can you get me closer to my goals? What am I missing on my day-to-day workflow that'll help me achieve my goals more? And so if you're a family office, if you're new to this and you're trying to figure out how AI fits into your world, right? Every family office probably has a different process. Every family office has a different research, process, research workflow, things like that. Describe everything it is you do to that AI. Maybe keep it in a document, right? A markdown file or a doc that you can then hand to every AI you talk to, like almost like an onboarding doc. Say, hey, this is who I am. Okay, how can you make my life better? How can you improve our workflows? How can you help this office make more money? And then it will be able to tell you, depending on whatever the tool is and its capabilities, exactly what it can do from a very simple level.
And yeah, we got a little technical there with the .md files, Markdown. That's so important. If you're going to start every project where it doesn't know who you are and you're starting from ground zero and you got to waste time, that's time is money, and it's very, very frustrating. Without making it hyper technical, and they need to watch an Andre Karthapi read or video, what would you recommend to ease them into skills which Claude has, markdown files, and getting more institutional memory of who you are to make current and future projects just more seamless?
It's a question, how do you kind of make it more seamless, your future projects based on who you are, and how do you onboard better? Repeat that one more time.
And basically simplifying the utilization of markdown files, which really isn't that hard, but you got to create it and maybe update it one time and learn how to integrate it into your systems.
Yeah, I use Obsidian for this.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Obsidian is basically a markdown file organizer. And for those who don't know, markdown is just the language these agents talk in, just plain text files. And so I keep kind of a record of markdown files I use quite often. So these will be files that describe who I am, goals, ambitions, workflows. These will be rules files. So in Codex and other coding tools, there's this concept of agents.md, which is basically your rules file, which describes the agent, how you want it to work, how you want it to code, things like that. I have one consistent file I use across all my tools. And so basically you want to keep a folder, if it's for your business, have it in the cloud, of just the rules you want, how you want your agents to work, information about yourself, your business, how it operates. And then you can quickly take these and give them to all your agents that you work with. And if you have teammates, coworkers, whatever it is, you can have shared files and folders. So each can take whichever one's appropriate for them and give it to agents. Say, hey, here's who I am. Here's how I want you to communicate with me. Here's the rules for how I want you to build things. And you can quickly get them all kind of working the same way.
Excellent. That's very helpful. One of the advice that I sometimes give to family offices, let me know if this applies to businesses and people in general, maybe we should all be doing it. This is more so if you're earlier in your journey and process. Why don't you write down, at least over one day, but maybe the full week, exactly what you're doing. Be very detailed. Maybe even subscribe to Granola, that's recording conversations, conferences you go to, meetings, and then learning how to prompt and have the AI said, hey, here's a day in my life. How could I be better? What could I do more effectively? That's always more important than efficient, but how could I be more efficient as well? What's like an early process that you recommend to understand someone's workflows, what they do, and how AI could work with them to make them better practically immediately?
Yeah, very simple. This was something I do very regularly. I write down everything I do during the day on this piece of paper. I carry around with me everywhere. I carry around the pen and the paper. Every task I do during the day, I write it down on here. At the end of the day, I go to my AI and I type in, here's everything I did today. How can you help me with these tasks? Which ones can you take off my plate? Which ones can you automate for me? And what will happen is you'll figure out ways you've never even thought of to use AI that will improve your life a tremendous amount. Again, it comes back to one of the original points we made, which was the AI is much smarter than you in a lot of different ways. It knows how to use itself much better than you know how to use it. And so you should be taking advantage of that knowledge. And you do that by saying, hey, here's a list of everything I did today. What do I need to do? What should I be doing? How can you help me more? This exercise helped me a ton.
Alex, besides a master user and entrepreneur, or building up on top of that, you're doing something pretty incredible now with Henry. I think the audience would benefit from learning more. Please tell us more about Henry Intelligent Machine.
Yeah, I believe strongly in UBO, which is Universal Basic Opportunity. And what that basically means is that I think everyone should have equal opportunity with AI, because that's really what AI creates, is anyone can build anything they want. And what Henry is a personal AI that learns all about you, goals, ambitions, skills, finds opportunities that you can solve, that you're personally positioned to solve, and then builds micro businesses around those opportunities, right? So if you were super into investing, you're very knowledgeable about investing, Henry would learn that about you, then go and find challenges to solve around investing, and then build the products and businesses to solve that so it can generate you value. I strongly, we talked about this earlier, a lot of people hate AI in America, and I think it's because they're not getting value out of it. And so I'm building a product that allows everyone to get value out of it by having an agent that learns about them and autonomously builds businesses and creates value for them. And that's what Henry is kind of your autonomous value generator.
Let's even say a principal in my world, in the family office world, is watching this, and I don't know, in their 60s, maybe good for them. They may have billions of AUM in assets. They have a staff of 12 people, but they see that things are changing. They do understand becoming more effective and efficient, doing more, better, and faster. And again, I want the executives and employees to win. They probably have to honestly let arrogance and fear, they have to let that go. Normal human emotions, they have to learn and they have to be the best user inside the enterprise with what they're doing with AI. We kind of hinted at this multiple times, but I think it's important to pound home. Where do they start? Like what's a good starting point that you would recommend?
When it comes to using AI and getting most out of it?
Yes. And if they don't, rather bluntly, if they're not the principal and they're an employee, they're not the entrepreneur, they're an employee, they may become obsolete. How do we help them so that doesn't happen to them?
We do whatever it takes to get them to use it, right? And again, it can be very overwhelming. There's so much to it. It can feel technical at times, but you just need to get on it and have conversation. Here's who I am. This is what I do. How can you help me? And that starting point, again, that action will lead to information, which will lead to you figuring out new use cases, new things to do, which will branch off and inspire. You know, I've talked to many people who I got them to use ChatGPT just to kind of go over their daily tasks like we just talked about. And now they're using Codex to build out new apps and launch new businesses quite often, right? And so it's that little bit of initial action and inertia you create that leads to really amazing, great things you never thought you'd be capable of.
And I do want to go back to an audience that's near and dear to my heart within my own family, with families in my community that have younger family members, to the concern of the booing of the college graduates. So the audience, let's call them under 22. Yeah, like I hear when Diamandis talks about we all have to be entrepreneurs, and I don't disagree, but that may not initially always be realistic. Maybe in 10 years it's going to have to be, because that's just how it is. So a relatively similar question. They're more digitally fluid, but they're afraid. So skills have utility. Utility turns into economic value. They have a mission. They want to, enjoy and interact in their world, to have the opportunities maybe their parents or grandparents had. And the world is not going to go back. It's here we are. So I don't know if it's a similar question to where do they start, but how do they make this more of their daily routine? Because I think they have to.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be intentional about making it your daily routine. You have to be intentional, because if you think about like, oh, I got to use it, and you try to think about, okay, how can I use it? You'll spin in circles thinking, right? So you just have to do it. You have to be intentional. I'm going to start my day, first 10 minutes every day. I'm going to talk to ChatGPT, tell what I plan to do that day and see what it can do for me. And you just kind of have to start intentionally including it into what you do during the day. You said you don't necessarily disagree about everyone becoming an entrepreneur, but what is an entrepreneur at the end of the day? An entrepreneur is just someone who creates value, right? That's it. So why can't everyone be someone who creates value? Well, a lot of the answers people give is, not everyone wants to be a marketer, a salesperson, coder. Well, the thing is AI allows you to do all those things very easily. If you've never done sales before, an AI can help you do sales. If you've never done marketing before, I'm like the worst designer in the history of mankind, but I'm pumping out these really incredible designs and advertisements and graphics for Henry that I could have never done before because of AI. So I think that people need to stop underestimating themselves and know that they are capable of being entrepreneurs and creating value and building things. So one is, stop underestimating yourself. Believe you can do anything. Believe you can accomplish anything now. And then two, now that you know what you're capable of, go out and actually use the tools and figure out what you can do.
When is Henry going to be available for people to purchase, upload, and start to use?
The goal is in the next 3 hours to get the first beta tester on.
All right.
Yes. Then from there, we get the first person on, get them to value, get them using it without having to bug me every 5 seconds. And if they're able to kind of autonomously use it and get value, okay, we'll bring on a second person, then a third person, and a fourth person. So this is going to be a super slow rollout. The more people get value out of it, the more people will bring on. and eventually it'll be gates wide open. So in the meantime, feel free to pay attention to both my Twitter account at Alex Finn, as well as the Henry Twitter account at Henry for All.
And in the chat box, Sean, those were good comments and questions. I'm sorry we didn't have more time to get to it. And Gus, yes, this is live. We're going to wrap up in about 2 minutes. You'll be able to watch it on the recordings. Maybe repeating, Alex, in terms of what you said about how people could learn more about you, your X account, your YouTube platform, subscribing to your newsletter. How could they learn more and be a part of what you're doing?
Yeah, a bunch of ways. My YouTube. So if you search Alex Finn, you'll find it pretty quick. It's at Alex Finn Official over on YouTube. I have a bunch of like really good tutorials there if you're trying to get into AI. Then there's my X account at Alex Finn. Talk about AI all day on there. So make sure to look out for that. And I have a newsletter, alexfin.ai, www.alexfin.ai. You go to that. I have a newsletter there. 40,000 people subbed on there. Go to any of those. You'll be in the ecosystem. You'll learn a ton about AI, and life will be great.
And pardon the background noise, everyone. I did forget to mute my phone. And in my close, one, it's been great to have Alex on. I am a huge fan. You have to subscribe his X account, his newsletter, his YouTube platform. I mean, I'm kind of giving away to some of my family offices one of my secret people, but it's okay. I want to share with the community and be of value. I think he's wonderful. It was incredible to have an hour today. I wish I could have 2 or 3 hours so I could learn. Everyone, I'm Angelo Robles. I'm at Family Office on X and on YouTube. Speaking of those accounts, you can learn more about me if you're in the world of finance or obviously family offices. I've been in it for decades, and I am extremely active in the world of AI. Like Alex said, starting at a later age from my perspective, just putting in the work, hundreds and hundreds of hours. And yes, some money spent on hardware and things like that, and making every mistake in the book. So my members, go to angelorobles.com, join, become a member. And in the world of finance and family offices, learn how to integrate, because that's a large part, not the only part. I love many other subjects in the family office world too, but what makes me unique. My private books for families, my upcoming June 23rd and 24th masterclass for member family offices. It's all up on angelorobles.com. Alex, I really appreciate you. You're an incredible guest, a world of resource to young, to old, to people that are experienced, to people that are waiting to take that first step. I hope you inspired them. I greatly appreciate your time, and have a great day.
Thank you very much, Angelo. It was great talking to you, man.
Thank you.